All right, let's do this. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Poker and Pizza. My name is Rob Gardner, and on this kind of live video podcast, we talk poker strategy and tips and try to help you with your game. And of course, we eat pizza. And today, we are starting to get into the better quality pizzas in my hometown here. Our pizza of the day is Garcia's. It's a local Detroit-style pizza shop. I think it was opened in the early 70s by the Garcia's brothers. They went to the University of Illinois, opened a little pizza shop on campus, and it kind of took off. And it's kind of dwindling down now. The Garcia's brothers are pretty old, but some good stuff nonetheless. If you're watching on not TikTok, if you're watching on Twitch or you're watching on Twitter, feel free to head over to the youtube.com/@RobGardnerLive. And you can catch all of the action there. Shout out to all the early hype here. What's up, Scott, Ginger? Good to see you. Bonesaw Poker, nice. Welcome, welcome. It's so nice to actually have some decent pizza. By the way, y'all, I've had some people reach out and be like, hey, pizza's not very healthy. You shouldn't be eating pizza on a stream. I'm down 12 pounds now in 2025, so we're doing all right. How's everybody else doing out there while I actually enjoy a slice of pizza? Very excited for today's lesson. I think for a lot of you, especially if you've had frustration with your progress, today is going to help a lot. It's going to kind of help you understand why you stagnate and why you struggle at times. And then also, I really hope I'm going to give you some solutions that will help you get on the right path. And for those of you that stick around to the end, I have something free to offer all of you as well. So you're going to want to stick around for that. If you're watching the recording, make sure you watch it all the way through, or at least skip to the end so you can get that as well. Now this is good pizza. I don't know what their family recipe is, but huge fan. I didn't pull a trigger on the baby stuff. They have this baby stuff pizza. It's like, I don't know, 6 inches. But it's a half freaking pound. And it's like a half freaking pound Chicago style pizza, and really good, but you have to eat it with a fork, and like I would have gotten through like a third of it and been done, and that would have just been too much work. While we're waiting, lots of stuff happening this week. WSOP launched their new schedule. We'll be talking about that tonight on the Chase the Dream podcast, 7:30 Eastern. Watch chasethedream.com, which, by the way, we were going to announce this last week and I forgot. We're going to be moving to Tuesday nights with that. And this show is going to be moving to Mondays. So we're consolidating schedules a little bit, bounce some things around to be a little bit more friendly. I know like there's big streams, like Drew's got his home game Wednesday nights. Craig's soccer finally got done, so we're able to move that show to Tuesday night. So this will be the last Wednesday night for Chase the Dream, and then that will be Tuesday night, same time, 7:30 Eastern. And then I'm moving this show to Mondays, and what that's going to allow me to do is I'm going to have all of my meetings and content wrapped up on Mondays and Tuesdays. And that will give me the rest of the week, Wednesday through Sunday, to grind, play poker, travel. If I want to go to like a Run Good series or something. It makes it a lot easier to do all of those things. What do you eat on a Monday, Jay? What's your Monday food of choice, bro? Sushi? Like, I don't know what's better than Pizza Monday Taco Tuesday. It feels like a good 1-2 punch. Which, by the way, man, I have been all over the I've been all over the tacos. That's actually helped me lose weight. Aldi's, it's insane. They have these pork carnitas. It's like $6 for a container. You poke holes in the container, you throw it in the microwave for like 3 minutes, and then I shred it. It is ridiculously good. It's just protein, low calorie protein. I throw that in a taco shell with some fresh pico and some cheese. I ate 2 of those things and I'm golden. Chimichangas are good too. When is the next run good? So we can actually take a look at that while we're waiting here. I'm pretty sure it is Tunica. Well, Jamul's running right now, but that's way over in like San Diego. I know we're going to talk more tonight because Craig has spring break. Yeah. Tunica the 11th through the 16th. I may try to hit both of these, St. Louis and Joplin, back to back. I might try to hit both of those. St. Louis I have to hit. It's 2.5 hours from my house. Oh, they're going to Jacksonville. That would be interesting too. I hadn't seen that the full schedule was out. Kansas City is a possibility as well. All right. I'm going to get this last bite down. So good. This show gets better every week. No more crappy pizza. Okay. Another reason to watch on YouTube. There's a link to these show notes in the description. So if you want to follow along on your own, you can certainly do that. And afterwards, these notes will be available. So if you want to go back and reference this later, you certainly can. Now, disclaimer, okay? I'm about to negatively critique a lot of the education that takes place in poker. That doesn't mean that training sites are bad. That doesn't mean that poker coaches are bad. It doesn't mean that the people out there that you've gotten your education from are bad people. It simply means that healthy education is a process. And a lot of the steps that would normally take place in an educational system don't really exist in poker right now. And so the value of a lot of those opportunities is very dependent on where you're at and when you're ready for them. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to explain why education in general kind of is failing, and then in turn give you guys some tips and tricks and help for how you can fix these problems and kind of have a better poker education. But I'm not saying, oh, this site's bad and this site's bad and this site's bad. At the right time in the right place, when you're in the right spot, they can have a lot of value. So please do not watch this whole thing and be like, oh, Rob said that all the poker training sites suck and they're all terrible at teaching. That's not my intention. I'm guessing the training has failed me because the paying for it is less helpful than the watching it. Yeah. We're going to get into that. Tyler said, when did 6 inches become baby size? That's funny. All right. So let's get into it. Okay. So here's the premise. This is where we're going to start. All right. We live in a social media world, which is great. It's really cool. You have content available everywhere, right? We've talked about how when I was first getting into poker, the only poker content there was other than books was like card runners. And it was like, I don't know, $100 or $200 a month. And that was it. And that was your only option. nowadays we have Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and Twitter and Meta and Blue Threads, all of these things, right? And so there is content everywhere and there's information everywhere. And because of that, you can get a poker education in any flavor, in any situation you want. Now, with that, there is a little bit of an issue because there's really no barrier of entry to teaching poker, right? Anybody can decide to put content out about how to play the game, strategies, tips. Anybody can build a poker training site. And what's interesting is Black Friday was kind of a unique time in the poker world. Because we had all these businesses that were running and doing successful things, and then Black Friday happens and all the major sites pull out and all the corporate spending pulled out. All the major companies pulled out. It was a very ugly era and time, and it left this huge void. And in that huge void, eventually poker players started coming up and starting poker businesses, right? Because now there weren't training sites, there weren't poker sites, there weren't poker clothing companies, all of these, there was this massive void, and the poker industry, people in the poker industry jumped into that. The only problem is a lot of the poker players that started doing all of these things didn't have like business skills, or they didn't have the acumen. They had not started companies before. They had not run training sites in other industries. They had not run poker sites. And so, you can go through history and you can see all of these different disasters, right? Where these companies were ran and organized and fell apart, or maybe they ran successfully, but they didn't run very optimally because they just didn't have the experience. And so poker training is kind of one of these areas where a lot of good poker players have come along and created, poker sites, but not necessarily with the skills it takes to do it. Now, there's good and bad, okay, about this lack of barrier to entry. It's not all bad. This is not all a bad thing. It's not all doomsday, right? So let's start with the good, right? The good of there being no barrier to entry, not having some sort of like certificate you need to teach poker. One is there's a lot of free resources available, right? This is a good thing. You can literally go on YouTube right now and find a dozen different content creators in different styles and formats, teaching cash, teaching tournaments, teaching GTO, teaching exploits, right? And so all of these resources are out there and you can find them and you can access them. You don't have to go out and spend hundreds of dollars to find videos that will help you with your game. That's good. Another thing that's good along those lines is that you have options, right? You have infinite options, and options are a good thing. We don't like it. When Card Runners was the only thing, it kind of sucked because it was really expensive. And if you couldn't afford the $200 a month, you were just screwed. Likewise, if you went to Card Runners and you didn't like what they offered, what are you going to do? You're going to go buy Doyle's Super System or Phil Hellmuth's 10 Tips About Poker. So like now you have infinite options at infinite price points. There are still the $1,000 courses that Jay's talking about. There are $500 courses. There are $250 courses. There are courses that are monthly, $100, $200, $50. You have the gambit, and there's free content that's out there. So the options are good. But there are some problems with this. One of which is a very common one, is that you can learn bad habits and you can have a very poor poker foundation. And I see this a lot because poker is very much the calculus of the poker industry, right? And you cannot go learn calculus if you haven't learned algebra and trigonometry and geometry and all of these foundational courses that set you up for calculus. If you went into a third grade math class and you just started dumping calculus on these kids that were just starting to learn how to do long division, you would blow their freaking minds. Yet in the poker training space, a lot of us jump into these sites and get coaches who are teaching these really high level concepts, and they still really don't have a good fundamental understanding of things like board textures and polarized ranges and all of these more simpler concepts. And so what ends up happening is they don't have that proper foundation, and they do a lot of what I would call basically imitating the players they like, imitating the players they've learned from. And the problem is a lot of the moves that are taught on these sites take some intuition, right? Like deciding to pull a triple barrel bluff is not something you just do on a whim and pray and hope it works. I mean, you can. It's fun, right? It can be fun to like gamble and just like triple barrel and wee. But from a practical sense, that doesn't work very effectively if you don't understand the nuances of why we're triple barreling and when we're triple barreling and what dynamics play into triple barreling and how your sizing on each street affects your triple barrel. These are all things that if you don't understand the basic building blocks of how pot control and SPR, all of these things work, then you're going to understand what the concept is, but you're going to apply it really poorly. And I think this is a cycle a lot of you get into where you go to a training site, you watch some videos, you get kind of the idea of what's happening, but then you horribly misapply it because you haven't gotten all of these foundational things in place. The other thing that just happens is just the reality of the situation is the quality of education out there is really poor at times. And this makes it hard for you to internalize and apply what you're learning. And that's so important, right? I'll never forget when I was 9, I went to my buddy's house, one of my neighbor's houses. His dad was a car mechanic. And he's like, "Do you think you could take a car apart?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Bullshit." He's like, "Anybody can take a car apart. You need like 4 wrenches. You can literally take an entire car apart down to its core. And you can take every piece of the car apart. But it takes an expert on a car to put a car back together. Anyone can take a car apart, but not anybody can put a car together." And that's kind of what happens in poker education, right? Anybody can triple barrel. Anybody can check raise. Anybody can bluff. Anybody can bluff catch. We all see these things, and it's very easy to apply these tactics, right? But it takes an expert to understand the minutia and the why and the when and the how of we do it, to do it in a way that is very effective and profitable. And this is where poker education fails you. So I want to talk about 5 ways that your poker training to this date has left you short. All right. And I'm going to assume, even if you've had some success, because I've experienced this where I've had success in poker, but there's still been areas and situations that poker training has failed me. So don't just assume if you're watching this, you're like, "Well, I'm a profitable player. Poker training hasn't failed me." That's not necessarily true. You maybe would be farther along if you'd had a better educational process. You may be farther along if the way you were taught different principles and ideas was more effective. And I want you to understand why these things are happening. So moving forward, you can catch it ahead of time. Moving forward, you can go, "Wait a minute, I know what's going on here." And then you can properly adjust. All right. Okay. So let's get into it. Ooh, this is going to be controversial. All right, here we go. Here we go. Number 1. All right. Very few great poker players make great teachers. Very few great poker players make great teachers. And this is not just true in poker. This is true in industry, all kinds of industries, where just because somebody is elite at their craft doesn't mean they have the skills and abilities and talents to teach that craft. I'll tell you a funny story about when I was in seminary. My spring semester of my freshman year, I took a missions course. And for those of you that think missionary is just a position, missions are people that like go and take the good word into other countries and help the poor and whatever, right? And this guy, apparently, the school I was at, they brought him in because he was this big missionary and he'd done things in Africa and Asia and all these. He was like one of the top missionaries in this denomination or whatever it was. So they brought him in to be a professor, right? Because here he is. He's done all these amazing things. He should be a good professor. And I'll never forget sitting in this class the very first day. The first thing he taught us is the first lesson is he drew a 3 on the board. And he said, the United States of America is 3% of the world's population. Therefore, every religious organization in the United States should give 97% of their resources to the rest of the world. And I thought, that's kind of weird. Okay. And then he proceeded to assign us 100 pages of reading over the weekend. So, I read through the reading and Monday comes, and this is our second day of class, Monday. We walk in and he goes, pop test. He didn't even call it a pop quiz. He was like, pop test in this like bulky accent. And he hands us this like 15-page exam. What the hell is going on, right? Right out of the gate. And so I go to the first page of this exam, and question 1 says this. It says, this excerpt is from page 67 of the book. And he had taken a sentence out of the book on page 67, pulled 3 words out of the sentence, and wanted us to fill in the blank on those 3 words. Exactly. And the entire test was 86 questions of him grabbing sentences out of the book, pulling words out of the sentence, and expecting us to have the entire friggin' thing that we read memorized. I had never, the only time in my entire college career, I went straight into the department and I'm like, get me the hell out of this class. Like, this is literally what this guy thought education was. He thought it was like, oh, you should just be able to read 100 pages of a book and have every single word memorized and be able to take this random sentence and know exactly what word is in there. Because he had no teaching skills, right? You guys have all seen Venn diagrams. We have a big circle and then you have another big circle and there's a very tiny overlap. It's not that poker players are stupid people or unintelligent people. It's just really good education has a lot of skills associated with it that don't necessarily have overlap with what's really good as a poker player, right? Good educators understand how to communicate. They understand how to know where the student is at and how to lead them along the way. They know how to take very complicated topics and break them down into simpler bits that you can understand. And there's no progress as a poker player. There's no part of the poker growth process that organically teaches any of that. And so what ends up happening is you get these players that rise to the top and they do awesome things and they get huge-handed mobs and they win bracelets and they win rings. And everyone's like, oh my God, I would love to learn from so-and-so. They're such a talented poker player. And then we find out that they don't have any of these educational skills. And now we're watching these really long 2-3 hour training videos, hoping to get what they've taught us in there. And it's not in a format that's really very beneficial to us. And it's really important to understand because it's so easy to get fixated on this, right? You start thinking, well, I want to be a great poker player. And you look for the person with the biggest resume. Like, who's accomplished the most? Oh my gosh, this guy has 5 bracelets. I got to learn from him. Well, yeah. And maybe if you get in that course and you have the ability to dig through the difficult stuff and find the gold, and you have the ability to really parse through what you're hearing and find what's valuable, and you have the ability to go back and watch it multiple times and then digest it and create your own systems, it can be done, right? But it's not plug and play. Okay, it's not this, you listen to this person who's accomplished all these amazing things, ramble for 3 hours, and now you've absorbed it all and you're at their level. That's just not how it works. And this is illustrated in professional sports too. Less than 1% of professional athletes, NBA, NFL, MLB, less than 1% of professional athletes end up being coaches, managers at the professional level. Of that less than 1% who get to that level, less than 20% of those players end up having a coaching tenure of 3 years or more. So the vast majority of professional athletes never become coaches. And of the ones that become coaches, the vast majority of them don't have a successful tenure in coaching. Because being a great basketball player, baseball player, football player doesn't mean you can coach the game. You have the knowledge, right? If you were an elite quarterback and you won Super Bowls, you know how to be a quarterback, but that doesn't mean you know how to teach being a quarterback. So we have got to separate ourselves from this idea that just because somebody is good at the game means that they're good at teaching the game. It's very, very different. All right. Any questions on that? All right. Second one. Poker coaches generally fail to teach the core concepts. Okay? And there's two reasons for this. All right? One, most sites just assume that you know the fundamental concepts. They assume that you know what position is. They assume you know what board textures are. They assume you know what ranges are. They assume you know how all of these things work. Why? It's kind of funny, right? Like you have all these training sites. Now, there are a few training sites out there that do some fundamental videos, right? But the overwhelming majority of the training sites out there kind of assume that you're at this baseline level where you kind of have the basics down, but there really isn't a lot out there that teach the basics. And it's very hard to not only jump in at the middle and just try to start picking things off, but also because of that, a lot of these sites don't have any kind of progression. So you're coming in, it's like, oh, I want to learn from this site. I hop in. Okay, cool. There's 864 videos. Where do I start? It's a great question, especially since there's no progression to the 864 videos. It's just 864 videos. And now you're kind of not only tasked with trying to absorb the information that's there, you're kind of in charge of your poker education, and you have to kind of figure out how to weave your way through this. And again, going back to what I said in the beginning, I'm glad you can watch a 3-hour video on most training sites about how to check raise. That's awesome. But if you don't understand the core concepts of like why being out of position is difficult to play, you might not understand the value of check raising, right? If you don't understand how hard it is to reach minimum defense frequency when your opponent's bet at a high frequency into you in the big blind, you're not going to understand why raising lowers the SPR and actually reduces their positional advantage. And a lot of training out there doesn't cover any of that. All the training is okay, we're going to get into it. Check raising. Here's my 9 steps for how to check raise. We're not going to tell you why. We're not going to explain the precursors to this. We're just going to assume you know it, and we're just going to slam some check raise theory at you, and then we're going to throw you some GTO charts to justify our check raise theory, and then good luck. And the problem with that is you can't memorize all the spots, right? You can't memorize all the spots. You can't even memorize all the logic. And so you're going to inevitably end up in situations where you have to rely on your intuition. And when you have to rely on your intuition and you have not learned these core concepts, you don't understand how they work together, your intuition is shit. Now, it's hard to hear, but I want to be honest about this. Because this is one of the reasons why even when you've put in the work and you're like, well, I've watched hundreds of hours of training videos and I've watched this and I've studied my ass off, but I'm still losing. It's because your intuition isn't dialed in because you've learned the wrong things. You've watched videos on all of these high level concepts, but you don't really understand the whys behind it. And these sites don't do that. And one of the reasons these sites tend to not do that is they don't see a lot of value in it, right? Content takes time to create. Let me tell you something. As somebody that makes content is work. It is work to sit on, record the camera, get the lights, get the audio, do your recording, do multiple takes, edit the takes, polish it, get it all together. It's a shit ton of work. And these training sites, like, they're trying to target people who can spend $50, $100, $150 a month. So somebody that just played poker at a home game 6 weeks ago for the first time with M&Ms or pennies and nickels, they're not going to want to dump $100 on a training site. So the training sites don't target them. They don't care. They're looking for people with money. And so a lot of these sites just don't see the value of teaching those things. And what's the danger of this is there's this false confidence that comes when you watch these high-level videos and you feel like you're learning something and you feel like you're getting better, and that makes you feel like you're getting value for what you're spending, but in reality, you're not getting any closer to your goals. So the training sites don't have a lot of incentive to do this. The problem is it doesn't help you grow in your education. 3, poker coaches really struggle to break complex strategies into simple lessons. Now, again, I want to stress, I don't mean every poker coach. I'm not shitting on every poker coach out there. And I'll give you an example. One of the coaches that I think does a good job of this is Faraz Shaka. I've enjoyed Faraz's site, and I've enjoyed how he takes high-level GTO concepts and he builds out heuristics for them. He does a very, very good job for that. But again, if you haven't learned the baseline concepts and you just jump into the heuristics, it's going to limit your ability to take advantage of them. So someone who if I talked and coached with somebody and I felt confident, they understood the core concepts and they understood the underlying strategies involved in poker, I would absolutely recommend Faraz's site to them. And I would absolutely say this is a great site for you to start digging in to the GTO side of things and learning how to really master these things. But if they're not on that level, that content is not going to be valuable to them. And that's really the problem with a lot of these sites is if you haven't gotten to the prerequisites, then the actual course doesn't bring the value that they're. Yeah, the editing is phenomenal. Agreed, Brett. And so I say all this to say, like, you're going to see a lot of teaching and instruction and videos out there where everything stays at a complex level. I mean, if you've ever looked at a freaking GTO chart, how bloody complex is one GTO chart? We're talking about one spot, one street, one specific combination of hands and positions and stack depths and board texture. And you get this blob of color. Partial frequencies, 70% third pot, 20% 2/3 pot, 8% pot, 3% over pot, right? For every combination of hand you can have for a spot. That is complex as hell. And if you think that people are out there like just, autistically wizarding this shit, where they're just absorbing it and memorizing it, and they've got a photographic memory, and then they're sitting in a hand and they're recalling a solve they did 18 months ago, and then they're applying God, no. That's not a thing. I mean, I'm sure there are some rare savants out there, right, that are gifted beyond human capability that can do that. Maybe 20 people in the world, right? We're not those people. I'm just going to be honest with you. You're not that person, and I'm not that person. And if you were, you sure as hell wouldn't be in this stream listening to this right now. We're not those people. So we have to, if we're going to be good at this game, we have to take that insane amount of info and condense it down into something that we can internalize and apply not only effectively, but consistently. So that when we do get into all of these situations that we haven't seen before, our intuition can lead us the rest of the way. And this is where GTO has ruined a lot of people's games. Now, I put out a video Monday, kind of shitting on GTO. And it was funny listening to some of the comments. There was one guy that responded, was like, oh, great, another one of these guys. All you need to do is node lock for this spot and then adjust and da-da-da-da. And guy meant well. I get it, right? Because when you get into high-level solvers, you understand how they work, you can use node locking. For those of you who don't know, node locking is this thing where you go into like a GTO wizard and you tell it that that your opponent's going to use a strategy that's not optimal. And then it'll kind of roughly figure out what you should do to adjust to that, right? So, say you had an opponent who, never raises with ace king, right? You can put in that they only call with ace king, and then you can see how your strategy adjusts. And yes, that can be a way to effectively use GTO to learn how to deal with practical world situations. But again, the average person is not going to have the time, is not going to have the energy, is not going to have the retention to look at every bloody possible situation where somebody's going to do something weird in poker and then go look up the GTO response and do all the node locking and wait for the solve to finish and then analyze the data and then curate that down to some sort of pullaways and takebacks and then memorize those takebacks and then practice those takebacks and then see how they work, make minor adjustments, and then re-put them into the system and do that for the 8 million different situations they're going to get into. It's the stupidest way to learn poker there is. Now, again, if you get to a really high level and you have a passion for looking into these answers, you're probably somebody that can benefit from that. But again, most of us don't have 60 hours a week to devote to poker studying. Most of us, if we're lucky, can spend 2-3 hours a week studying. Otherwise, we wouldn't have time to play. We have families, we have kids, we have jobs, we have all of these other things. So teaching the game from a format that's designed as an educational tool for people that have infinite amount of time to study and spewing that to people who have a few hours to study is not good. And then even worse, again, what ends up happening is our intuition gets warped because we get into a spot where like, oh, I don't know. And our brain just starts looking for the last solve we can remember that's even remotely similar to the situation. And then we vaguely remember the spot we saw where this person talked about this GTO spot and he was doing this, and we go, oh yeah, he went over pot. And then we just flick our chips in. And it's not even remotely close to the situation we're actually in. So we have to understand, is GTO in and of itself a bad tool? It can be used very, very effectively, but it's designed for people who have infinite amounts of time, who are playing the game at a very high level against opponents who are playing at a very high level, and we are not those people. And quite frankly, if you need GTO to be successful, you're probably really bad at game selection. Because in 2025, there are mid and even some high stakes games that are full of people hemorrhaging money who have no clue what they're doing. If you're playing in a tournament or a cash game where the 8 people at the table are so good that you need to play GTO to survive, you're doing it wrong. You can find $100 online tournaments that are soft. You can find 1Ks live that are soft. They are out there. Yeah, you're not going to be able to play at the Win in June. You're not going to be able to play at the coolest, fanciest places. But what's your goal? What's your goal? The reality is it's very simple. You have to walk before you can run. And not only that, for the poker that we need to play, walking is sufficient the majority of the time. We're sitting here learning styles that are teaching us to run, and we're trying to figure out how to be faster at running, and we don't even know how to walk. So when these coaches don't bring these complex strategies down to simple lessons and they don't teach us these basics, we're putting the cart before the horse. And that really, really holds us back. All right. Number 4, poker coaches, and this is a big one, they don't teach the styles you need to learn for the games you play. And this one, honestly, is a big pet peeve of mine. Not in terms of what coaches are teaching, but the fact that people think that going and learning from somebody teaching how to beat high stakes is going to help them beat low and mid stakes. Like, you need to understand today, okay? Learning how to play mid stakes poker doesn't translate well into how to beat low stakes poker. Learning how to beat high stakes poker doesn't translate well into beating mid-stakes poker and low-stakes poker. They're different pools, right? When you jump in the pool as a little kid and you got your floaties on and you're in the 3 feet water and your toes can touch the ground and you're trying to learn how to like paddle and do like that's very different than trying to swim across the pool when the water's 12 feet deep. And I think that, again, we're so fascinated with this idea that a great player is a great coach that we want to immediately go learn from somebody who's crushing the game. I'll give you an example. And again, I'm not shitting on this person, right? Chance Kornuth and Alex Foxen. Those guys are wizards at this game. I think that Alex is the GTO wizard that really understands GTO at a high level. And Chance is the guy that kind of comes in at the high level and knows how to exploit even the best players in the world. And they have both had amazing results and done incredible things. They're beasts, right? When was the last time Chance played a $300 buy-in tournament at the WSOP circuit in Turning Stone? It's been a long damn time. When was the last time Alex Foxen played a Run Good or a $33 online tournament on Global or ACR or Ignition? These guys haven't been in those player pools in years. They don't understand the meta. They don't understand. Now, that's not to say that they didn't play in those pools at one point and they don't have experiences that align to that. But these guys are dialed in at the top of the game. To go and learn, people teach the game from the top of the game is fine if you have infinite bankroll and you're going to go play Tritons next month. You're going to go play 10Ks at the WSOP. Abso-fucking-lutely. Recommend that site right out of the gate. Go learn from the best of the best. How does that help you beat 22s and 33s? How does that help you beat your local 150 daily at the Ho Chunk Casino down the street? It doesn't. Some of the concepts overlap, but again, the application is so far removed that you're learning moves, you're learning things that you can do, but you're not learning the minutia of how to apply them. It's so important when we learn poker, we've got to learn from the ground up. If your goal is to play 109s, I get it. Have that as a goal, right? But jumping in at 109s before you've crushed the 33s and 55s, before you've crushed the 11s and 22s, it's insanely hard to do. And I don't want to like frustrate anybody because I know like sometimes, especially those that play for fun, it's like, well, I don't want to go play 11s and 22s. They play differently and I don't want to learn 33. And that's fine. I get it, right? You want to jump straight in. If your goal is to not make money and your goal is not to have success in the game, then you can do that and do it for the fun factor and don't care about your results. But if you're sitting there, you know, the premise at the beginning of this is you feel like your poker training's failure. There's a gap between the time you've put into this game learning it and the results you want to see. If you're frustrated with that gap, then you got to have a little bit of a reality check and come back and go, maybe I've skipped some steps. Maybe I'm over here really trying to learn all this high level strategy for mid and high stakes, but I really didn't craft the skills I needed to beat the low stakes. And I'll hear all the time, well, you know, people in the low stakes, they don't play properly. You know, they'll shove 120 big blinds pre-flop. So I don't like playing those guys. Listen, the concepts you learn beating people who shove 120 big blinds pre-flop, who 8x pre-flop, who bet 2x pot on the flop, who overplay top pair, who chase their gut shot to the river and get there. All of these crazy things that people talk about the low stakes. The skills you learn to beat those set the foundation for how to beat people in mid stakes, even though they play completely different. Because once you learn how to handle the outliers, it helps you get better at handling the more stable play. You wouldn't think it would. You'd think that like, oh no, I'm going to learn to beat the good players that play the way I think they're supposed to play first, and then I'll deal with all the crazy outliers. That's not the case. And it's very simple because a lot of what it takes to beat really, really bad players is some of the simplest poker in the world, right? When you're playing mid and high stakes, you are trying to play a very balanced, very elite level of poker. And there's a lot of minutia to it. When you're trying to beat low stakes players that are being ridiculous, all you're trying to do is not make mistakes. So it's a much more simpler form of poker to learn. And then once you learn how to play a form of poker where not making mistakes, you can build off of that foundation and start to learn the minutia of playing a more balanced, aggressive style. So you really, really, really need to start at the bottom and work your way up. If your goal is success, if your goal is profit at some point, if your goal is winning at a consistent level. And most people don't want to do this. And these poker coaches have a tendency to teach the style that they're playing in the games they're playing, and it's useless to you if you're not playing in those games and you haven't done everything you need to do to get to that point. Last reason that poker training has failed you is poker coaches want you to take the exact same path that they took to get where they are. And this is something I see, again, this is not a poker thing. This is a life thing. 4 years after seminary, actually, no, it was like more like 6. I'd been working at a little local church as a youth pastor for several years. And I ended up leaving the church. We'll go into the backstory there. But I met up with a couple friends, and we thought about starting a Saturday night youth church. We just wanted a place for kids to hang out on a Saturday night, have fun, and stay out of trouble, right? Most of the drinking and partying and things that would make kids make decisions that they weren't ready to make happened on Friday and Saturday nights. And we had another church that was going to partner with us. They were all set to help us facilitate this. We had people that wanted to donate money to the cause. We were going to bring in live music. It was going to be this really cool, positive thing. And the church that I used to work at, the senior pastor found out about it and called this church and reamed them and threatened them to shut it down because he was afraid if I did that, his kids were going to leave and come to our thing and not go to their thing anymore. So I went to confront him. I was furious because, like, who cares what church they go to? Let's just help kids have a better childhood. That's all we care about. I don't care about all the other stuff. And I got in his office, and this is exactly what he said to me. He pointed his finger at me, and he said, "How dare you think you can run something like this?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "I went to 8 years of seminary and I got my bachelor's and I got my master's degree. And then I interned for 2 years under and he like read me this riot act of his resume for why he did all of these things before he got to run some church service. And he's like, "You think you can do this without doing what I did?" Because in his mind, that's how he got to where he was. So therefore, everybody needs to go to 8 years of seminary and everybody needs to do all this stuff. And it's bullshit. And you will see this, not just in poker, you'll see this in your workplaces. You will see this in every career path you potentially take, where people will come along and they'll say, "Oh, you want to be this? Okay, well, here's what I did to get here. So you have to do the exact same thing." Spoiler alert, there are multiple paths to the same destination. And one of the problems with poker training is people will say, "Oh, well, you know, I studied GTO for 4 years before I got good at poker. So now you need to go study GTO for 4 years before you get good at poker." No, that's not how it works. We are unique people. Unique individuals. One of the amazing things about life is we look at things differently. We think about things differently. We absorb things differently. We respond to different types of communication differently. Some people are the memorizers. They can go in and they can sit there and memorize anything they watch and learn. And that's how they learn, is they memorize. They just memorize. And then once they memorized everything, they're good to go. But then there are other people out there, it doesn't matter what they memorize. If they don't know why something works, they can't function, right? They literally can't function. It's like, I don't care how much of this memorized. If I don't understand the why, I don't understand the what. Neither of those people are wrong. Neither of those people are better or worse than the other, but they have two very different learning styles. A memorizing person is probably going to like GTO because they're going to like going in and watching thing after thing after thing after thing and just internalizing and memorizing it. A why person is going to pull their hair out. Why are we going 2x pot with this hand in this spot? It doesn't make sense. They're not going to care what the charts say. They want to know the reason to build it up. And that's just two teaching and educational styles, two learning styles. There's hundreds. So you have to be careful because poker coaches will sit there. I mean, it's human nature. It's like, well, you want to learn from me? Let me tell you what I did. And that's fine. But just because they took a certain path doesn't mean that that path is even close to optimal for you. Just because they spent 3 years studying GTO, or they spent 3 years memorizing ranges, or they spent 3 years in low stakes, or they learned cash games before tournaments, or they learned tournaments before cash games, or they played sit and goes for 6 months, or they focused on heads up for a year. Just because that's the path they took doesn't mean it's your path. And again, human nature, a lot of these training sites, they take you on their path. But that doesn't mean it's your path. And if you try to follow in their shoes, in their footsteps, a lot of times it's going to lead you astray. A good coach knows how to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And they're going to take the extra step to understand where you are and create a new path for where you're at to where you want to be. Whereas a bad coach or an unknowing coach or a coach that doesn't have educational skills is just going to try and force you onto their path. They're going to see you as derailed. And they're going to, oh, no, come back over here. Step one, let me bring you in. This is where I did 5 years ago. The 5-year path to being me. And half these coaches, you wouldn't want to be them anyway. So, can you see why? Again, I'm not saying training sites are bad. I'm not saying private coaching is bad. But can you see why the wrong fit can really do damage to you along the way? Or just be completely ineffective? Can you see why you've spent money on different products? Or hired coaching from different people? And they may be good people. And they may be well-intentioned people. And they may know the game well. And they may have done their best to try to help you. But at the end of the day, you spent the money, you put the time in, you didn't get the results you want. I'm hoping you're seeing from this that it's not as easy as just going and grabbing some educational material, binge watching it, and now by osmosis, you're a superstar. All right. So what is the solution, right? Because anybody can bitch about a problem. But if you don't provide a solution, what help are you? So there's 3 steps, okay? There's 3 ways that you can better handle all of this. And we're going to be talking about these ongoing over the next few months because this is stuff that, like, as much as I'd love to condense this into 1 hour video and I'm already going to go over time on this, it's just not realistic. But I'm going to give you the starting point. And I'm going to provide you something I think will help. But I want to give you the baseline in case you're just one of those, I like to do things by myself. I like to think and absorb things and make my own decisions. I get it. All right. So number 1, you need a learning path. Okay? You need a learning path. One of the things that has been so valuable to me over my 20-year poker career is I've never kept a poker coach for more than 2 years. And that may sound like I'm, schizophrenic or, I'm antsy. I can't, stay in the same place for too long. And maybe that is coincidentally true. But what it has done is it's allowed me to evolve over time, and it's allowed me to learn what I needed to learn from each person. Because there are, even if let's just say you spent $200 on this training site and it hasn't helped you and you're frustrated and you're listening to this and you're like, damn it, he's right. I can't believe I wasted that money. You can still get value out of that. But what you have to do is, one, again, get the foundation better so you can better understand what you've paid for. But two, there are aspects of that person you can absorb, even if you can't absorb the whole thing. And what I've learned in my poker coaching style is literally this montage of 10 or 11 different coaches I've had over my 20 years, where I learned a little bit of something from each of them, and it bolstered me a little bit more. So you can absolutely go that way. Now, that can get expensive, right? Not everybody can afford to have 11 coaches in 20 years. It was worth the money in the long run, but I also had to do a lot of work on my own to reabsorb what I learned and figure out what it meant and how it fit into my game. Yeah, Ginger says they get stale. 100%. Like, there's only so much you can learn from one person at one time. So you need a learning path, right? And again, you cannot just jump in at the level you want to be at. If I was listening to this right now, and if you're somebody, you're like, my goal is I want to go play like $400 to $600 tournaments live, win some rings. I want a chance to win a bracelet. Like that's the level I think is most common for people kind of that are casual recreational players trying to work out. If that was your goal, I would not literally, again, start with trying to learn with people that are there. I would start at 11 to 22. And I would find some people, whether it's a training site, a private coach, a study group, a group of friends, a community where people are beating 11 to 22. And I would get in and I would absorb that. And I would apply that. And I would learn that. And I would craft that. Get really good at it. Get the results. And then I'd be like, all right, I'm ready to move up. I've got results. The graph's looking good. I understand these concepts. I'm in a good place. Now I'm going to go learn 33s and 55s. And again, that might mean I leave that community. I leave that group. I dump that coach. I drop that training site. And I would go find something for mid stakes. And I would really hone my craft there. And then I would go find something really catered to $400 and $600 live tournaments. Now, $400 and $600 live tournaments do kind of play like $11 and $22 tournaments. But guess what you're going to need to play $400 and $600 live tournaments? A bankroll. So being able to make money at 11 and 22 and 33 and 55, not only does it give us a good foundation with the online stuff and practice because we can get volume in, but it also gives us a nice bankroll to work with. So we can go to a circuit and not fire one bullet, right? Because you want to win a ring, you need to fire a lot of bullets. The key to winning a ring is not being the best player in the world. It's being able to fire bullets until you get there. So you build this bankroll. Then step 3, now I'm going to go learn from people that are at that level. What are you doing today? And the thing is, this is so important, right? Because again, intuition-wise, we want to find the people with the biggest results, when what we need to be doing is finding the people with the best educational skills. Now, the nice thing about content is you kind of can see from people's content what kind of teaching and communication style they have, right? So go find somebody that communicates in a way that you understand. Not everybody watches my videos and understands what I'm talking about. Trust me, go read some of the comments. Some people watch my videos and they get pissed. Good for them. I enjoy waking up too. I get amused waking up and reading some of the comments. But some people go, oh my God, this makes so much sense. I love the way he's communicating this. There's a connection there. And going back to the very beginning when I talked about how in this social media age, There's stuff everywhere. That's one of the good things about it. You can find somebody where you resonate with how you connect with them. Might not be me, and that's fine. But find someone that you resonate with that's in the place where you need to be successful. They may have never coached in their life. You might need to approach somebody and go, do you do coaching? No, I've never done coaching. Well, listen, I'm willing to pay you because I like the way you communicate. I like the way you talk about the game. What would it cost me just to get in your head for an hour and to get your thought process and to hear you 1v1, just like you do in your content, tell me what you think of my situation? And that might be more valuable than any training site you get. It never hurts to ask. You might approach somebody that does content and say, hey, what would it cost me to get an hour of your time? And they might be like, oh, I'll just give you an hour. It happens. I'm not saying it's super likely, but it happens. But focus on somebody that is really going to connect with you and build this process out. Don't rush it. Don't just jump into the $400, $600 stuff and try to learn from somebody who won a bunch of rings 10 years ago when the games have changed. Start at the bottom and work your way up. Start at the bottom and work your way up. You need a learning path. And in my mind, I know the impatient people hate this, but this really can be fun because you take a little bit of the pressure off. For most of you, playing 11s and 22s doesn't have a lot of pressure, but firing a $400 bullet does. So take the pressure off. Enjoy the game again. Get back to a spot where the game's not stressful because the money doesn't matter, and go kick some freaking ass. Go win yourself a global trophy or something, or a ACR tournament, or whatever. Go win something at a level that doesn't make you uncomfortable and work your way up from there. You need a learning path. The second thing you need is you need accountability. Everybody hates this frickin' word. Ugh, accountability? Seriously? Now, here's the thing. Accountability doesn't have to be somebody else, right? I don't know. Accountability was this obnoxiously ridiculous thing in the religious circles. So I honestly don't know what the regular world thinks about the word accountability, other than nobody likes it. But accountability can be yourself, or it can be a coach or somebody else. It can be a peer. It can be a friend. But you need somebody. You need a checks and a balances to go pump the frickin' brakes. You're not ready for this. Slow down. You're trying to master triple barreling and you don't frickin' know how to c-bet. You're trying to master check raising, but you don't understand what your big blind defending range looks like. You're trying to understand bluff catching, but you don't even understand bet sizing, right? You need somebody to hold you to that learning path and make sure you're really going along the way. Now, coaches that are good will do this. But sometimes, again, because of the things we talked about, like coaches wanting you to take the exact path, sometimes coaches will be bad at this. Sometimes a poker coach is going to hold you accountable to things you don't need to be held accountable for. So you got to find somebody that's, again, kind of on that same frequency as you. Someone with similar goals, someone who understands where you're at, who's helping you on your path, not their path. But you need that. If you don't have that, find it. Hire a coach. Have the discipline to do it yourself. Find a community, a study group, a group of friends that'll hold you accountable. I have friends that will hold me accountable. Several of them are in this channel right now, watching this. I go off the rails, they're going to be in my face. And it's not as bad as it sounds, because those roadblocks can save you a lot of freaking time and a lot of freaking money. And all that a accountability person is doing is making sure that you're really mastering your craft before you move on. Making sure that you really kind of figured out where you are in the learning path and you're really truly ready to take that next step. And again, that can be you. If you're a disciplined person and you hold yourself accountable, like some of you, you have the discipline, you just keep ignoring the question. You're like, have I really gotten good at 11s and 22s? Yeah, I'll just move up. It'll be fine. And then it's not. You need that accountability. And then the last thing that's so important, and this is where I hope I can partner with all of you. Some of you. I don't mean all of you, actually. I hope I can partner with some of you. And that's this. You need a strong poker foundation. Have to have it. I've been playing this game for 20 years. I've been profitable for 16, 17. Guess it depends on what you mean by profit. But in that 16 to 17 years, the aha moment that really opened things up for me was when I stepped back from everything I learned and I got back into the real strong nuts and bolts of how poker works. When I really truly learned how stack to pot ratio works, how position works, how board textures work, how linear and polarized ranges work, how bet sizing impacts things. When I went back and really got into that, it changed my life and it changed my career. Think about the core concepts of poker as ingredients, right? The more ingredients you have in a kitchen, the more amazing things you can make. And once you have enough vegetables and seasonings and fruits and meats and proteins and flours and grains, you can make anything. And one of the things, like for me, I love cooking, right? I love cooking. But I have never followed a recipe down to like the exact measurements. Most times when I want to make something, I'll kind of go look and see kind of like ballpark what people are doing. And then I go make my own thing. And occasionally it comes out really bad. But sometimes I make amazing things. The first meatloaf I ever made, I mixed in Italian sausage and ground beef together. No, nobody told me to do that. It was fucking amazing. Loved it. Oh my God, it's so good. Not that you want to hear about my meatloaf. But my point is, when you learn these foundational tools, you now have the building blocks to make whatever you want in poker. You don't have to go to a solver and run a solve and memorize a bunch of partial frequencies. Because you understand that the larger you go in sizing, the less of your opponent's range can call, the more polarized you are. And the more polarized you are, and if you're doing it properly, the harder it is for your opponent to attack it. You understand spots where your opponent is capped and you have range advantage. And you can bet with your entire range and apply pressure, because no matter what, the range they have is not strong enough to stand up to that aggression. And these are all principles that you get to understand. And then you get to spots. You don't need to rely on the solver, because you understand how the building blocks work. Enjoy, my friends. We've polished ours off at the very beginning. So where do you get this foundation? And this is where I want to partner with some of you. And this is not me trying to squeeze any money out of anybody. I've been working for the last, 5 to 6 months on some content around this exact thing. Because I have friends who struggled in this game for a long time. And I look at the landscape that is poker education, and I see 2.5 hour hand history videos. I see sites full of hundreds and hundreds of videos with no progression, no start here, no go here. It's overwhelming. And I was like, what would it look like to teach people a strong foundation and not have them have to spend hundreds of hours on it? What would it look like if they could very easily find the things that they needed to work on, watch a 10-minute video, and have the information they need in a very simple, digestible format with a very realistic possibility of retaining it and build that foundation. And the goal of that was not to replace training sites or to better training sites or to put training sites out of business. The ultimate goal was maybe I can lay the groundwork that nobody else is laying. And then once people have that groundwork, maybe they can get true value out of what they've already spent money on. Maybe that $300 or $500, $1,000 poker course they bought a year ago will make sense once they have the pieces in place in the initial building blocks. I also just wanted poker training to be fun again. Like, it sucks when you have a full-time job and a family to sit down and try and watch a 2-hour video. And you're getting interrupted. Like, look, I know I got dogs and kids, man. You're like, all right, I'm going to focus. I got 2 hours to study, and 20 minutes into your video, somebody's knocking on the door, right? Dog pooped on the carpet or something. Some stupid thing comes up. Now you're distracted. You got to go deal with that. You come back. Now you forgot where you left off. So you got to go back 10 minutes in the video and rewatch 10 minutes you already watched just to get back to where you are. By the time you get through your 2 hours, you've only watched 45 minutes of the video. You remember half of it, and then you got to start over a day later, but now you've forgotten half of what you watched the day before. It's monotonous. It's a never-ending loop. I don't see many people go watch a 2.5 hour video and then well, what'd you learn? Oh, I learned A, B, and C, and I'm good. It just doesn't happen. And I know, like, the times I've watched 2-3 hour videos, I've had to watch them 3-4 times to really get them down. So I worked really hard, and I put together a course that's got 61 videos currently. I think it's going to end around 63 or 64, specifically targeting this. And where I want to partner with some of you, if you're interested, is right now, 10 of those videos are available on a website. Doesn't cost you a thing. You're not subscribing to anything. You're not free. You go watch them. They're free today. They're free tomorrow. They're free in a month. They're free in a year. And those 10 videos are just 10 sample videos from the 61 video course I've worked on. And what I'm looking for is feedback. I'm looking for people to watch these videos. Let me know what they liked. Let me know what they didn't like. Let me know what would have made it better. Because I want to see something in this gap that is educationally focused, that's communicated well, that's communicated simply, that takes the complex topics and breaks it down, that gives you simple decisions, a simple way to think about the game, that gives you a baseline that you can be very, very comfortable in. And I don't want to make the mistake of my predecessors and just assume because I record 200 hours of content and I've been successful in this game that that's going to help people. So if that is something you're interested in, those 10 videos are ready right now. They're available. You can email me at teampokerpastor@gmail.com. You can send me a DM on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok at Rob Gardner Live. You can hit me up on Discord, Poker Pastor. Pick your flavor of choice. Hit me up. I'll get you access. You can check it out at your leisure and get back to me and let me know if those videos are helpful. Because this is a space I want to be in. And this is a space where, because I spent almost 7 years teaching life to teenagers and college students, I've had a lot of experience breaking down concept topics into simple topics. I've had a lot of experience communicating and public speaking and doing different teaching engagements. So I feel like I am equipped to be able to hit this at a very specific level. I'm not going to teach you how to win high stakes. I don't play high stakes. I've dabbled in them. I've had some success in them, but my focus has been in low to mid stakes. There are people out there that can teach you with high stakes, but you got to start at the beginning. And I think the beginning is where a lot of these training sites have not hit. And that's where I want to focus. So if that's something you're interested in, email me, teampokerpastor@gmail.com, at Rob Gardner Live on any of my socials. And I'll get it to you within minutes. You can check it out. You can see what you think about it. And hopefully what I'll do is I'll take that feedback. I'll get the other 51 videos done. And we'll have something that can help people build out this strong foundation. But even with the strong foundation, like I said, you're going to need a learning path. You're going to need to have some accountability, work with somebody or yourself, and have fun with it. Like, think about it, right? I think the reason people don't want a learning path is because they're afraid it's going to take too long. They get overwhelmed. They're like, well, man, I'd really like to go win a bracelet, but to win a bracelet, if I do it the right way, I'm going to have to do all these things. It's going to take me years just to learn all this stuff. Do you know how many times people have gone from 0 to hero in this game in less than 6 months? It's happened more times than we can count. I just put a video out on my socials. Well, actually, I don't think it's coming out later this week. I recorded it a couple days ago. And the video is simple. Everything I needed to learn to be successful in poker, I learned in 2 months. And it's true. It's really true. Like, the lessons I really needed, there's a lot of other lessons I learned that had value, but the lessons I really needed to be successful in this game, I learned in a 2-month stretch. So please don't think that, like, if you want to be at the level where you can beat $400 live tournaments, that it's going to take you 5 years. And because it's going to take you 5 years, you don't want to mess with doing it the right way. So you're just going to take the shortcuts because you can't wait 5 years to get there. That's not true. There's probably not a poker goal that you can't achieve in 6 months. Now, I'm not talking about, well, my goal is to win a bracelet. You're probably not going to win a bracelet in 6 months. That's a volume goal. I'm talking about, like, skill level. There's probably not a skill level you can't obtain in this game in 6 months and under if you're really dedicated and you have a really sharp plan and you hold yourself accountable to that plan. But where most people struggle is they don't have the accountability, or they don't want to take the real path because they think it's going to take too long. They take a ton of shortcuts. They overcredit how well they know certain things. You know, you ask them a scale from 1 to 10, how good are you at c-betting? Oh, I'm a 9. I got c-betting down. And then you start digging in their stuff and you're like, nah, you're a 4. So hopefully, again, these last couple of weeks, I really hope have dialed you in to say, there's reason for optimism. There's reason for hope. You can do big things in this game. And some of you, I feel for you because you've spent a lot of money and you've put a lot of time in and you're frustrated because you feel like you deserve better for the time you put in. Some of you, you've literally said on social media, you're like, I've worked harder than this person. Why are they having more success than me? I've outworked that person. Why are they at a final table winning big money? And it frustrates you. I've been there. But unfortunately, effort is not enough in and of itself. We can't willpower ourselves to the top. How you're doing things is just as important as what you're doing. So if you need to, watch this video a second time. The notes are in the description for this video. You can go back and look at these. And again, if you're looking for something to figure out that foundation, hit me up. Any final questions? I'll repeat the announcement from the beginning. Tonight, watch Chase the Dream, 7:30 Eastern. We'll be talking about the WSOP, the new schedule, our plans for the summer. Starting next week, Chase the Dream's moving to Tuesday nights. We'll be live Tuesday nights, same time, 7:30 Eastern instead of Wednesday nights. I know a lot of people have Wednesday things going on. Drew's got his home game and whatnot. We're getting that moved to Tuesdays. This show will be moving to Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern, same time. And that's going to allow me to consolidate my schedule so I can be more poker-focused Wednesdays through Sundays. So same great shows, just a unique time. And I really, truly hope you guys are getting a lot out of this. I love talking about this stuff. I love saying the things that other people aren't willing to say. I love being super honest and blunt with you guys and giving you a realistic picture. Because at the end of the day, I've said this before, my best friends have come from this industry. And I've made lifelong friends in this game. I love this game. I love this industry. I love this space. But there is a lot of negativity and toxicity and ego and selfishness in this industry, especially at the top. And I want to come in and be different than all that. I want to create a place where people can be comfortable and love this game and have a wonderful experience, because there's more awesome people out there that you and I are both going to meet someday if people stick around long enough. But when people get frustrated, have a terrible experience, get treated bad by other people in poker and leave, we lose. we lose. That's me. I'm frustrated. I lack confidence, and you seem to have loads of it, just like most of the players that do well. So I'll talk about this briefly. Well, I've had fake confidence for a long time. I've probably had true confidence for less than 2 years. And there's two reasons for that. One was I didn't work on my mindset enough, which is very, very important. Mindset is really important. I had to really work on myself and get comfortable with who I am and really separate myself from caring what anybody else thought. Back a couple years ago, when poker was a way for me to prove myself to others, it was incredibly unhealthy. And all my confidence was fake because all my confidence was wrapped up in what people thought of me. And this is not a space where you win people over. This is not a space where you go win 2 bracelets and now everybody says, oh, you're an amazing player. We look up to you. Results are shit. They don't matter. They just don't. The number one thing that makes people believe in you is you believing in yourself. And the vast majority of the time, what others think about you is just a reflection of how you view yourself. And I had to die to my dreams mattering. Like I had to die to thinking that bracelets and rings meant anything in the world at all. And when I did that, I was able to start building a healthy confidence. So that was huge. That was huge. And I hope those that have been around me for a long time have seen a difference in the last, 18 to 24 months. Because when I came through that, it really did help me. I really am in a place finally where love me, hate me, I don't care. Think I'm good at poker, think I'm bad at poker. You do you. I'm very confident and happy on the path I'm on. So, sometimes you gotta see what the lack of confidence is coming from. And usually it's caring too much what other people think. Fake confidence is better than no confidence at all. Play bad, run well. Yeah, but the problem is fake confidence will lead you to bad decision making. It'll cause you to force things at certain times. It'll cause you to make plays that you don't need to make. And it'll cause you to have a sense of urgency that doesn't need to be there, right? I have to win this tournament. I have to win this cash game session. And you don't zoom out enough. So I suppose it's better than none, but just understand, you have time. You have time. Life expectancy is going up. You have time. And when you create this pressure on yourself to do everything now, and then you try to, be overconfident in a spot, you're not really going to play your best poker. You're already different and lovable. Thanks to you, I fell in love with the game again when I was on the verge of quitting. Huey, that means a lot. I really, really, really appreciate that. And I hate to hear that you almost walked away from this game and that you didn't fall in love with it. I've been there. I've almost quit this game on a couple occasions, even after winning years, because I lost the fun of the game. And that's a terrible, terrible place to be, because so many of us have been in this game for so long because we do love this game. And that joy can be stolen for a multitude of reasons. It can be stolen from other people being assholes. It can be stolen from dry streaks and bad runs and downswings. It can be stolen from burnout, pushing ourselves too hard. But that's why community is so valuable, and that's why the friendships we've built in this community are so valuable. I've never had that problem. I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I think that comes with age. Yeah, it certainly helps. I grew up very, very unpopular. I was a late bloomer. So I dealt with a lot of bullying and being picked on as a kid, and then got to college and was really cool out of nowhere. And that was a very dangerous transition for me, but yeah, it's fascinating what gets us to that end destination. Poker can also be very lonely, finding a trap. Oh, absolutely. One of the commercials I wanted to record a while back for 100K that we never got done was I wanted to make a video of somebody like winning a tournament, a live tournament, and like taking the picture, and then they go around to like high five their rail and nobody's there. And then it just says find your crew. Because really, like, it sucks when you don't get to share. It sucks when you don't get to share the highs with others. It also sucks when you don't get to share the lows with others. It's so important. You know, I love that I have people that I can call at any moment and say, I'm going through some shit. And it doesn't even have to be poker related. But they're poker people that I trust, and I can have that conversation. I also love that when I have success, that there's people there cheering me on and supporting me because I've been there and cheered them on and supported them. And there isn't this jealousy or this bitterness or this, you know, under tension. It's just pure joy seeing your friends be successful. I'm retired. I'll take the under on that. A lot of us have this story of being bullied. It shapes who we are and how we interact now. Yeah, for sure. For sure. It does. And there's a lot of bullying in poker. There's bullying everywhere. I mean, the social media age has made bullying cool again because, you know, all the keyboard warriors get to hide behind their anonymous dude bro 69427 hashtag and just spew hate. You know, back in the day when you bullied, you ran the risk of getting punched in the face. At least nowadays, people can do it free. But it's out there, and in poker especially, there's a lot of bullying, a lot of intimidation, a lot of clickiness. And, you know, the way you battled those things 30 years ago is the same way you battle them today. You don't try to win those people over. You just friggin' ignore them. Like, who cares what the cool kids at the top are doing? Let's just go do our own thing. So that's where, like, I'll end it with this. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. I'm nobody special, okay? I don't want to make myself out to be some, like, super special person that you just... But look, I've been in this game for 20 years. I've had success for 17. That stands for something. If what I'm doing looks fun, if what I'm doing looks like something you want to have, just stick around. Join the communities I'm in. Hang out with the communities I hang out with. Be in the circles of friends that I'm in. Subscribe to the YouTube channels and Instagram, Facebook, your social media of choice. Because I am attracting like-minded people. I'm not out trying to change the people that don't think the way I think. That's a waste of time. There's 7 billion people in the world, okay? I don't need to change minds. There's enough people out there who love positivity, who love encouragement, who love being challenged in a way, who want to be successful, who want to reach their dreams, who want to reach their full potential. There's enough of those people. I don't need to deal with the negative naysayers. They're no matter to me. But if you like what you see when you watch one of these videos or one of my shorts on, stick around because I'm gathering people like me and they're doing similar things. I don't want you to stick around me because I want to be the center of attention for the next 5 years. I want to stick around me because I want to introduce you to some of my friends. I want to introduce you to some communities where there are lots of other people like this. And if you like what you're getting here, there's a lot more of it out there in the poker world. You won't see that hanging out on poker Twitter. Poker Twitter will paint this picture of the poker world that is so different from reality, it will depress the fuck out of you. And one of the fascinating things about these podcasts is we've been doing them, we're getting into month 2 here, is we're meeting all of these people that we never met in poker who have a completely different view of life and the game of poker and what they like and don't like. There's an entire world out there you haven't even scratched the surface of yet. So stick around, hang out, stay close to the vest, because I'll introduce you to some cool people. All right, Al, again, thank you so much for coming. Join the podcast tonight. Watch Chase the Dream, 7:30 Eastern. Again, reach out to me on email or socials if you want access to those 10 lessons. I'll get them to you absolutely free. Your feedback would be horribly valuable. I will see you tonight at 7:30 Eastern. I will see you next Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern for episode 7 of Poker and Pizza. Have a good day.